Hi everyone, it's Neve here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today I'm going to be doing a ScrapFX project with a gel printed junk journal kit that came from ScrapFX. So first of all, I'm starting off with my large gel plate from Ranger Ink. This is the 8 by 14 I think size, and what I'm doing is just using a whole heap of my ScrapFX matte masks and stencils, and using those on all the pages that I've got in my junk journal kit. So this is a kit that comes from ScrapFX. It comes with all the different pages inside. You can see some have got laser cuts in them and I'm using those as stencils. You can see me printing off those. Any masks I'm taking off, I'm printing onto other pages, and I'm just using all the pages to get all the paint off my gel plate. I don't really mind what it's looking like in the background. I just want to get as much interest onto my pages as possible. The reason why I've chosen to gel print all my pages before I assemble it into a book is because I really loathe working on white pages. I like to have something in the background. I find that I work easier when I've got something in the background. The page here that you can see me working on is actually a transparency that's in the kit, and I've just used the excess paint that was on my brayer to colour the transparency, and I've just left that off to the edge to dry. What you can't see in this photo is the rest of my studio, which was getting very cluttered with bits of paper lying around. But what I was doing as I was doing this was anything that I used as a stamp, and all these stamps are from ScrapFX as well, I was stamping onto another piece of paper that I had from my kit, or I was stamping over the top of something that already gel printed. So nothing was going to waste. You'll see here too, I'm taking off the extra paint that I had through those cups. The paint that I'm using are Amsterdam paints, which are an acrylic heavy-bodied-ish paint, and I'm just using those because I had them sitting there. I'm really into neon colors at the moment, so I'm using a lot of the neon colors and mixing them up. And while I didn't really think about the colors I was using, it was mostly, I was sort of working in warms and cools, so the pinks, oranges and yellows on one page and these sort of green colors on another page. Then I knew I had a contrast when I wanted to stamp over the top. So for example, on this page I had the warm colors in the background, so I knew I could put my dirty mask over the top and get a contrasting color. And I really enjoyed this process because I didn't have to think very much about it. This is one of my favorite techniques, is going back in with the laser cut pieces from one of the pages in the junk journal and then using that as a stencil on another piece. So you can see all my pages are very, very busy, and some people might hate this, but I really love it because it means when I go in to my junk journal to actually work in it, that I don't need to think about the backgrounds. I don't need to do much to the backgrounds. When I actually completed this journal, I've fallen in love with it as I was doing it because it was just so easy to put together. But because I really loved all the backgrounds and all the interest that was going on in the backgrounds, I have decided that what I'm going to do is to use my junk journal as a collage paper dolls journal. So just make a whole heap of collage paper dolls and stick those into my journal. So I will put some examples of those at the end of the video of some completed pages, but that's what my finished journal is going to be. So at this stage I'm still playing around with the main plate to get lots of ink on. I also got out these stencils of the men. I think it's called the Harry and Tom, and it's a stencil and mask set, and using those as stamps into my journal as well, so you get that cool silhouette in the background. If you were doing this and it wasn't for a junk journal, you would just keep printing over the pages that you had so you get something really interesting. So these are all the pages that I've actually printed, and you can see how they're going. Now this is where I want to go in and just put some extra stuff on all the pages. So these are all the pages that have got the gel printing on. So now I'm just going in with a darker contrast color. So I've just rolled out some black paint and I'm using my ScrapFX stamps, and just stamping into them. So pages that had a lot of space, like this one, I'd put a larger stamp on. And again, I'm doing these ghost prints on them, which I love. I'm also stamping over a whole heap of papers, so it's not particularly flat, but that's okay because this is not a perfect journal. This is not perfect stamping. I don't want it to be perfect as I'm going along. I'm also now going in and using this as a mask straight onto my page so I can get some of the pure black silhouette, and now I can use the leftover paint and put it onto another page so I've got the prints coming in from the background. Even the excess paint here, which doesn't really have anything on, I'm just using in the background as a bit of darkness on the page to add some contrast. So the kit that you get from Scrap FX comes with all these papers already together. So there was map pages, there was grid paper, there were tags, there was the transparency that had the film strips on it. That's one of the map papers that you can see, so I had a slick surface to work on. This is the grid paper. There were just bits of cardboard. There were the pieces that you can see there that's got the die cut on it, so it's been laser cut out with a beautiful pattern on it. This particular kit is the patterns kit, I think, so it's just all patterns. There's a few different kits, so there's a nature kit which has got nature prints in it. I think there's a travel kit, I'm not 100% sure, so there's all sorts of different kits you can get, but they all come with the same stuff, so all the papers ready to go. It comes with the wax string to put it together, and the envelope that you just saw me there could be part of your junk journal. I actually chose to use it as my front cover. You could make your own cover to do with this piece. So you can see me sort of all putting together. Now, one thing I did do before I actually started gel printing, which I forgot to put on camera, is I did actually punch some holes in my papers. So I put all my papers together, put a clip on them to hold them together, and I used my big crocodile on the smallest setting, and I punched my 3 holes. And you can see me just lining up the holes now to try and put them together. I was still undecided whether I was going to use the envelope as my front cover or not. I was kind of debating about making a front cover, but I decided in the end I wasn't going to. So now I'm just sort of putting everything together, and while I was sort of cleaning up and making a space for myself, I remembered I forgot the transparency, so I'm just going in and folding that and putting that in as well. I certainly could have left the transparency clear, but I quite like the fact that I was able to use the paint on the background and it worked out okay. So the 2 pieces of paper that you saw there are mat board or chipboard, and I'm putting them through my Xyron machine so I can make them sticky on both sides. This kind of worked for me. I'm sure you could probably do this in a better way. When I did this, it made it very difficult to get it into the envelope because obviously both sides were sticky. But the reason I wanted both sides sticky is I wanted a really firm surface that the envelope would adhere to, so I could make a really good front cover. So you can sort of see me trying to get it down. So I'm pushing one of the pieces right down to the end of the envelope. The second piece, and you'll see me tear this in a second, is going to sit right up at the other end just before the closure of the envelope. So there's going to be a larger gap in the middle, and that's going to be where my spine is going to be, and it's a bit bigger, so it will obviously be able to expand with my journal as I add more stuff into it. So you can see there when I'm folding over, I've got a bit of space. This is the wax thread that comes in the kit so that you can sew it all together. Now, if you were sensible, and possibly if you were a sewer, you would probably have a needle that you could sew with. I couldn't find one, so I ended up improvising with some skewers and just poking it through, which actually in the end worked out pretty well because it is a wax thread. It sort of goes through really easily. I'm just sort of using a skewer to make sure that I've got the holes in the right place and it's all lined up, and it made it easy sort of to poke the thread through as well. So I'm starting with the top hole. I'm pushing the thread through, then I'm going to go through the middle, go down to the bottom, pull them both through, and then I'm going to come back through the middle and back out again to tie it all up. just to hold it really secure. So it's a really simple stitch, even for me who's not a sewer. I was able to put this together and it's holding really beautifully. Again, probably because it's the wax thread, it's really not moving or trying to escape. So I just put a knot in the middle, and then I'm going to put the threads back through so everything's double sewn, and then tie it onto the outside. Again, put a knot out here, make sure it's nice and secure, and snip it off as close as I can so I don't have any sort of threads spilling out. So when I put this all together, I was flipping through and I decided it sort of needed something. So I'm actually tearing down some of the pages. I really like torn edges, and I wanted to have a little bit of interest to this, that the pages weren't all the same sizes. The other reason I did this was because Scrap FX has just released these cool arty file labels basically, and I wanted to use those. So again, because I'm a bit lazy and I've got it, I'm putting them through my Xyron machine. So if you've never seen a Xyron machine, basically what it is it applies adhesive all over one side of your project. The top side you can now see is shiny. It's just a plastic that takes off the excess adhesive. I find it really easy to do this because you're not fiddling around with wet glues or a double-sided tape or getting stuff where you don't need to be. So it basically turns everything into a sticker, which is really, really easy. So you just see me peel off the top layer, and then all I need to do is fold my tabs in half and they're all stuck down. So it's as easy as that. There wasn't any rhyme or reason to how I was putting them in. I just knew I wanted to put a tab on each page. I still haven't really decided what I'm going to do with these tabs because I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't call myself a scrapbooker. They're not things I've used very often in my artwork, I have to say, but my idea is, again, because I want to do these sort of papery dolls, that I'm going to use these as sort of a numbering system, or maybe come up with a name for each of the dolls and write them onto the tag when I'm finished, so it sort of all ties together. But I like the fact that they're sort of those, again, all collaged bits and pieces, so it just adds another bit of interest to your page. Now I'm sure some of you are looking at these pages and going, that looks like a hot mess. Why would you do that? Why would you put so much stuff in the background and make it look like this? But I really enjoy, as I said before, working on a surface that is interesting, because it means you don't have to think about the background, and it also gives me a bit more freedom when I'm working, that I don't think I'm ruining something because it's already got something in the background, so I'm just adding stuff over the top. The final thing I decided to do to my journal, so it's again a bit of a flip through so you can see all the pages, is to do something to the front and back. So one of my favourite techniques, particularly with gel prints, is to then go back and add in some watercolours into the backgrounds. This just sort of finishes off the page for me, I suppose, and adds in some extra colours. I do this a lot in my art journals on pages. I sort of do some collage and then put my watercolours over the top and sort of add it in. And the great thing about doing it over a gel print is the acrylic paint acts as a sort of resist, so you can paint over it, but the watercolour really just sits on the bits that aren't painted. And you can see, while it looks a bit messy here, it actually comes together really nicely at the end. I really love the blend of colours. And again, in the backgrounds of the pages, that would be something I would go in. So particularly those pages that have got a lot of white gaps, because I really struggle with white, I would go in with my watercolours and maybe mark making pens just to add something else in the background. So I'm just using, again, another Scrap FX stencil. Every possibility begins with the courage to imagine, and going in with my knife just to clean it up because it just smeared a little bit under the edge. And this is just a gold texture paste that I'm applying with an acrylic spatula, and applying it all over my scissors as well, as you can see in the background. So just scraping it through so it's fairly even. And the good thing about the Scrap FX stencils are, because they're relatively thick, you can actually do a pretty good job with your texture paste. So here is a close-up of the pages that I have created so far using the gel printed pages. Slowed down a little bit so you can sort of see them in more detail. It was a brilliant technique to play with. I had lots of fun putting it together. It was one of those things that was fairly mindless but fun. I just had my gel plate out and I wasn't worried about where I was doing anything. I was just printing over the top of things, just, you know, having fun, using up my paint. And I've created something that I really treasure and will have lots of fun working in the future. So if you go to the ScrapFX blog, which will be linked in the description below, you will see all the materials I've used from ScrapFX to put this together and a link to the junk journal kit. And I will also have 2 of the finished pages that I've done so far in my journal that you can have a look at how I'm using this journal. Thank you so much for watching this. I know it was a long video, and until next time, bye for now.